And happy Friday to everyone out there. We're so glad to have you today on SADS Live, this special edition for Father's Day. So happy belated Father's Day to all of you out there. We're taking an extra opportunity to celebrate today with some of our community dads. So with that said, let's jump right in there. And I want to make sure that you can still let us know if you have any questions along the way for our panel today of dads. And I'm Jennifer Burko, as you know, the community coordinator, engagement coordinator for SADS, and I'm filling in today for Dr. Ackerman. So as we get started, let me first introduce to you for CPVT, we have Tom Pemberton, who's been a very active member of our community, along with his daughter, Meg. Welcome, Tom.
Hi, how are you? Thanks,
Doing
Jen.
great. Happy Father's Day. And next, we're going to introduce Logan Hansen, who is representing Long QT today, another dad of ours. And Logan is actually the husband of our family support coordinator, Tia, who you may be familiar with out there. And we're so lucky to have him today to talk about his 3 daughters and wife with Long QT. And in addition, we also have representing ARVC, Ryan Johnson with us today. And Ryan Johnson is, like I said, representing ARVC and is also Christy Johnson's husband and the father of Cassidy. Christy heads up our board for SADS. Welcome, Ryan.
Great to be here. Thanks.
So happy to have you, and happy Father's Day to you as well.
Appreciate that.
So how was Father's Day?
Is that to me, Jen?
To you, to Tom, to everybody. How was Father's Day? Did you enjoy?
Great. Yeah, I was with my family, with the exception of the one daughter who has the desmoplakin gene. She embarked on a trip to Japan that day. So
oh, wow.
A big adventure for her, and I'm thrilled that she, feels confident that she can take a 10-hour flight across an ocean with her condition. But she does have a device, defibrillator, pacemaker on board with her. So I'm feeling very confident in her adventure.
And she's a young adult at this point, right?
She's 21.
Okay. But I think as parents, I can't speak as a dad, but I can speak as a SADS parent. And I think as parents, no matter how old they get, the worry never goes away. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's always in the back of my mind. It's always lingering there for me and my spouse. Like, all it takes is that one phone call to send us into the, sort of get the hair on the back of your neck standing up and saying, oh boy, what's happening? But
right.
That phone call only once for our daughter a few years ago. But thankfully it wasn't anything too severe.
Well, thank goodness for small favors, right?
But I think you're right. It always is sort of in the back of your head, like, should we be on bikes right now? We're on vacation together. Should we be on this bike ride? Should we be, have we walked too many steps today? It's always kind of, even though I don't usually vocalize that because I don't want to trigger any kind of concern or anxiety in her. Sometimes it's lingering for me.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing, and always trying to kind of weigh both sides of, do I say something that's going to send, my child into hysteria or worry, or do I stay quiet and trust that they know what they need to do? I find for myself that is like walking a tightrope, trying to figure out when is the appropriate time to say the thing. Tom, can you tell us a little bit about your experience and your daughter and what that's like for you?
Yeah. So I'll just touch on that a little bit. Yeah, I can't imagine, Ryan, some of these other dads and everything out there that don't have the condition and have to have or see it for the first time with a spouse or with their daughter or son. But I grew up with it. I was diagnosed, early 2000s but started my condition and started having problems in 1989. So I've kind of gone a long way. I've gone over lots of different different issues and different, pacemakers and defibrillators and all kinds of stuff. But now seeing it with my daughter is a different thing. It's a different feeling. But unlike Ryan, I'm able, and Logan, I'm able to kind of talk to my daughter about my experiences and share stories and put her at ease, and let her know that there is a normal life that can happen from this, and you can have an adult life, and I'm proof of it. So Father's Day was great. I got a new grill, so
what dad doesn't love a grill, right?
That's right. I'm happy. The new Blackstone and the new griddle. I did some smashed cinnamon rolls this morning, so for the kids and for their friends. So it was really good. It's fun.
Fantastic. That sounds great. We're all coming to you for lunch.
That's it.
Logan, welcome. We're so glad to have you. And I know you, like Tom, have children and a wife who have the condition, but you yourself don't. Can you talk a little bit about your connection to long QT and your experience fathering through it?
That's right. So when Tia and my wife and I first started dating, it is definitely a subject that was brought up, her genetic condition and what it could mean for our future family. But see, even though heart conditions don't run in my specific bloodline, there's other conditions, cognitive, mental, that sort of thing. So I look at it as, just because I don't have heart issues doesn't mean I should, look at this any differently. So, we decided to just move forward together because, again, everybody has something, whether it's young in life or old in life or unexpected. And I thought, this is okay. I didn't even really think twice about it. And so to speak, we rolled the dice. We had 4 beautiful kids, and the dice must have been loaded because every single one of them ended up having the condition. And it's been good because I've been able to learn a lot more about the science behind it and just understanding that part, and it's brought us closer together as a family. It's made us aware of the things we're doing. I know that was mentioned before, and but yeah, that's kind of a rough outline of what we've dealt with, or what I've dealt with as a dad. Mm-hmm. And I'm, I don't treat my kids any differently. I just keep that in the back of my mind, knowing that they do have that. And but yeah, so, and I know Father's Day was brought up.
Yes.
We had a great one too. I told the kids, all I want from you is to be dogpiled on. Because they're at that age where it doesn't hurt me yet. So
right.
It's a different story at my house. Man, that would be tough.
Yeah, right. A bunch of adults piled on you. I don't think at that point we'd be worried about them. I think we'd be a little bit more worried about you, Ryan. So this is a really interesting panel because everybody's kind of coming from something a little bit different. With Tom, you have the condition, and then the similarity between Ryan and Logan, that both of you, married people with a condition and were aware of that, and then also now have children with it. I think that this is going to be a really interesting dynamic as we move forward with the conversation. And so with that, what are 3 words you'd use to describe your child or children? For Logan, I know it's going to be a little bit more difficult because each child's probably a little bit different, but just as a whole, how would you describe them? Tom, let's start with you.
Yeah, I would say my child is super outgoing, super curious about life, and just smart in general. She's ready to learn. Mm-hmm. It's like every day she comes up with something new, and we have to ask Alexa for, whether it's right or wrong. And it's just amazing. So, yeah, it's no different than any other kid, right? Outgoing and curious.
So with being so outgoing and curious, does that bring up a lot of conversation about what the condition she has? And when she was first learning about it, I'm imagining a curious child would have a ton of questions about what this is and what you do about it or not.
Absolutely. It started when her first episode where she passed out at school, and she said that a friend woke her up, and so she comes back home and she starts telling the stories, and it makes me sink, makes my heart sink because I know exactly what it is. And my wife is a little bit, skeptical about it. Like, no, maybe it was, something else, but it was a for sure for me. But then, being there and being that support for her, has kind of helped her along the way. And she's, how do I not pass out? How do I, do these things, or how do I do those things? Right. So, it's just all learning experiences, and sharing the stories and the things that I do to help myself. It's helped her along the way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I can definitely associate with that as I have the condition, same as yours, CPVT as well, and a child with it. And so I relate a lot back to myself. But Ryan, for you, it's a little bit different. So tell us maybe three words or so that describe your child. And then I want to hear a little bit about how you approach it as well.
Yeah, completely different experience than what Tom described. Cassidy, we have two daughters. Cassidy has the desmoplakin gene. Carly, who's 2 years younger, does not. We raised both of them to be very athletic. They were competitive swimmers. We ran 5Ks. We ran half marathons together. We trained. And we had no idea about this thing until about a month into COVID. So it was in the first quarter of 2020. Just a few years ago, when my spouse Christy, had an episode. Subsequent to that, we did genetic testing on both daughters, and then Cassidy, our daughter who has the gene, we got the results of that genetic test on the day that we moved her into the dorm as a freshman in college. So she didn't have anything like what Tom just suggested. Raised with it, asking questions at age 5, whatever. We had none of that. So she basically didn't have this condition, at least in her mind, until she was 18 and a freshman in college. And just to complicate things further, it was during COVID, right? So the world was not the same, right? People were not going to the gym, etc. So just a completely different experience. We've learned a lot about it, obviously, in the last 5 years as a family.
Of course, but I would think that it's incredibly difficult it's hard enough as a parent. I'm just getting ready to do this, to send your child off to college, but then to do that during COVID, and to do that having just found out that your kid has ARVC and your wife too. How did you manage it? How did you be the support for both of them in such a stressful situation? I'm curious about what you put in place to protect them, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know any more than anybody else. All I can do is educate myself, educate my family about what the condition is, know as much as possible, learn about it. I didn't put really anything in place. Obviously, we were listening to the best doctors that we could find. We consulted with Hopkins. We consulted with local doctors in Arizona, at Mayo, and in other places. And we simply took the best advice we could find. And, we've had 1 or 2 hospital incidents since then. And, one of the things I discovered, Christy had an incident, my spouse had an incident in San Diego. So we were away from home, went to an ER. And, the ER docs are very skilled and very knowledgeable. But in that moment, this was about a year or 2 into our journey. And I realized I might know more about this condition than the ER doc, who, And here's the strange thing. I have a cousin who's an ER doc in Los Angeles. And he said to me, oh, you, as an ER doc, you can never show, the patient or the family that you don't know what you're doing, right? And that's the ER doc thing. It's the facade. Is I know everything. I got this. I know exactly what we're up to. But some of the stuff that the ER doc was asking me at that episode, I'm like, I may know more than this guy about this. And of course, the cardiologists weren't there immediately. They arrived within time, but really an interesting experience to sort of realize I may know more about this than this doc.
Yeah. And I think it's a lot of pressure as a parent. I think all of us in this community at some level have experienced that, where you're informing whichever healthcare provider about this condition, and you don't feel as supported because there's no cushion there of them saying, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Let me see how I can help you. It's very much the reverse. And
it was not like, oh, I see this every week. Don't worry, Ryan, I got this. It was
right.
Not that.
Right. It's not that. It's never that with SADS conditions, unfortunately. And I would say of all the SADS conditions, the one that, I think has been at the forefront all along and is the most well known is long QT, which brings me to Logan. And Logan, if you had to describe your children, kind of very broadly in a few words, what would you have to say about your kiddos with long QT?
Energetic and careful. Again, my kids are young and they act like normal kids. We're really grateful for that. But again, as parents, we keep in mind that we got to be careful with them and just watch for signs. There have been some episodes where we could tell they're a little lethargic and it's probably time to get them recharged. But yeah, to describe them, normal kids, like to play, like to have fun, don't like to go to bed. So.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Are they all about elementary age or younger?
They are. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, and especially at that age, not all kids, but, many of them, like you said, are so energetic. Is that something that you have to kind of keep an extra watch on because of their condition?
Well, thankfully we've been blessed with good doctors that counsel us on how to handle that. And so far the instructions have been, as long as they're medicated, they're good to go. You don't really need to, obviously we need to watch them, but most important thing is to make sure that the medicine is in their system, and then, it's live a normal life. So.
Yeah. And I think, when the kids are young, the good thing is you're the one in control as the parent. You know if they've had their medicine that day, if they're taking it regularly, the little things that make a huge difference. But I think as they get older and that responsibility becomes their own, there's a different kind of parenting that has to happen of treating them more like an adult, but the worry's still there. So Ryan, I'm thinking about Cassidy being overseas and how incredible that is. And I'm thinking about my own son who swears to me that he's going to spend at least a semester abroad in Japan. And I'm already panicking. So I'd love to hear how you parent through that, where it becomes their responsibility rather than yours alone.
Well, I think it's a great point, Jen. When I said, our daughter was diagnosed basically on drop-off day at the dorm at college. And so we went home, and of course I'm thinking, I know how much she likes to work out. She's been a runner. She's been a swimmer. I'm of course picturing her running up and down the stadium stairs at the football stadium at college, right? I don't know if she's doing it or not, but that's where my mind went, so it's like, holy cow, what do I do about this? She was being responsible, but, I still think when you're young and when you're 20 or 18, you feel like, nothing's going to stop me. I can do anything. And nothing has stopped her yet. She did have one episode in college and she was hospitalized for one night, and it was not she was not running the bleachers at the stadium with her friends, or she very casually one evening walked up five stairs at somebody's, I think a sorority house or something. And she felt a little flutter in her chest and thought that was unusual. And so she ended up in the hospital, and she was going through some VTAC, but so it's just incredibly unpredictable. I mean, that's sort of one of the takeaways is I'm ready for the phone to ring. It's incredibly unpredictable. If the phone rings, is it going to be someone in distress, or is it going to be someone, asking how my day is and how I'm doing? But it's really delightful to see her go on an adventure like the one she's on now in Japan and Asia. She feels confident enough to take a long flight to go, visit the temples of Kyoto. I mean, it's amazing. It's really amazing.
Well, and I think that says a lot about your parenting, that she feels, you and Christy both, that she feels comfortable enough and confident enough in how she cares for herself, that she can take those trips. There's that line as a parent of, like we started this conversation of, I don't want to put fear in them, but I want to make them aware enough that they stay on top of taking their medications. And, I think that's a big worry when kids go off to college. They're studying late, and they, the scenarios, because we've all been through it, where you forget things. You might forget to take a dose, and that's unnerving as a parent. So thank you for sharing a little bit about that. Excuse me. I'm getting over being sick, so I apologize. I want to go a little bit into what we touched on earlier, which was advocating. So when you're advocating for your child,
Jen, you need some water? I feel bad.
Excuse me.
Please help yourself.
Go
ahead, please.
While you do that, I can talk with it. So
we're definitely live, folks.
Yeah.
And if you have any questions for these gentlemen, please feel free to let us know. But as you're advocating for your children, Ryan touched on it a little bit before about how you do that when many times you might know more than whichever healthcare provider you're dealing with in the moment. So Logan, can you speak a little bit to that about advocating, especially with so many children, how you sort of manage advocating? You're going to all these different appointments. Maybe you find yourself in a situation where you're talking to a healthcare provider who isn't your electrophysiologist. In what way do you advocate for your kids?
Yeah, so we look at where the kids are spending most of their time, and right now for us it's school. They're in elementary school, so we make sure that we have a relationship with the school nurse and that she understands what the condition is, what to expect, and what, not to panic as well. Like, because we don't want to instill that either. We don't want them to think, oh, they sneezed, so call the ambulance. We just make sure that the nurse really has what we're dealing with, and I would say that is the main way we advocate right now.
That makes sense. And so as you're, advocating for each child, Tom, when you advocate for Meg, do you feel like it's different than, advocating for your average child in a sense?
I believe so. So I do. I don't think I ever mentioned that, but I do have a 17-year-old who does not have CPVT, and then Meg is 10 now. They're both about to have birthdays in October. So, so a senior and then one going into 5th grade. So, I mean, you're constantly looking at it, and to kind of add on to what Logan was saying, summertime. Well, we've got all the camps and things going on. So you're constantly thinking about, where and how do you need to tell the camp leaders and the counselors, and most of the counselors at these things are teenage kids. So themselves. So you just kind of have to make sure that they understand what could happen, how to who to contact and what to do in those situations, and then hope for the best. Um, I did get a defibrillator, external defibrillator for my daughter. So I've talked to some of the camp leaders on, where those exist and does she need to take it with her and those types of scenarios. But I have no doubt that she's not going to have any problems and with medicines and things like that. But yeah, that's a big part of advocating for them. Yeah, and the school's exactly what Logan said. Even our school's even done some drills to making sure that they are able to get to defibrillators in time and to wherever they need to go inside the schools.
Yeah, and
So
I think that's the biggest difference, isn't it? Is, we're always advocating for our children, whether they have, an uncommon condition or not. But I think with these conditions, it is rare in the sense that not everybody knows about them or knows what to do about it or even understands exactly what they're dealing with. And so when I think about advocating for a child with SADS, it's almost more like I'm having to educate everybody that would potentially be caring for them. And I think about that camp scenario, and we definitely went through that where, they're never going to fully understand the condition, but just to understand what could happen and what needs to be in place if it does happen is the key. And the medications, of course, but and I think that is, kind of next level parenting in a sense, having to have this medical knowledge. It's almost like, I feel like at this point I should have some sort of secondary degree, in advocating for SADS conditions, right? Sometimes it feels like that.
Absolutely.
Sometimes I feel like I need to advocate with our daughter who has the condition because,
yes.
She was diagnosed as an adult, essentially, lived her entire life without it. And so I think sometimes it's a secondary thought to her. It's, I have to say, are you sure that you want to, we're in San Francisco. Are you sure you want to hike up that road, go up to the top of that road? I mean, that's very steep.
Yes. And I think they're always watching us too. They're hearing the questions. Like you said, are you sure you want, because it's different as they get older. It's not, don't do it or you can't. It's, are you sure that's going to be a good choice? Are you sure you want to do that? And hoping that they make the right choice. But I think they're also, watching us and how we handle things and advocate in order to learn how to advocate for themselves. Do you, Logan, I know your kids are so young, but is that something you've given thought to about, they're watching me and how I react to it. And if I stay calm, maybe they'll stay calm with it, but going a step further, if I show them the right way to care for themselves, my hope might be what?
Absolutely. By example is the best way we've been able to show them right now. And I know this is SADS dads, but I've got to highlight the mom here because she does a way better job than me at providing that example, especially because she has the same condition. So it's that much easier for her, and it's just a big party, and let's all take our pills together, and I'll pop a vitamin and pretend like I'm doing it too. So
I love that. So it becomes more routine. If you can all do it together, then hopefully by the time, all these years go by, it's, just part of their daily routine, not something they have to think about or remind themselves about.
Absolutely. In fact, our youngest, she is 3 going on 4 pretty soon. And, if you can remember that age, they're stubborn, they're tough, but worth it. Anyway, believe it or not, we were able to get her to take them in pill form.
Oh, wow.
And it happened overnight because for the longest time she would only do the liquid. We'd try the whole applesauce, Coca-Cola in the spoon type of thing, and she could always know what we were up to and find it. But over time, especially watching her older siblings take it, now she asks us for the medicine. Yeah, that little thing. And even the doctors, they they had to change up like when to have her take hers, because normally it was every morning and every night, and now they've switched some things around, and they said just once a day for her in the morning. And so before bedtime, she's, no, I need my medicine. No, you don't now. Yeah.
That's great. I've never heard of a 3-year-old taking pills. So hats off to you and Tia for setting that example. But I also know what it's like to be the youngest. And so I'm sure she wants to be all grown up like her brothers and sisters. So I understand that for sure. As I think about parenting children with SADS conditions and how you do that as a team and as a family, I think about my own husband. And one of the things that he has shared with me, he tends to be very calm, a very logical thinker, not much ruffles him. But one of the things is if he doesn't know where we are, or he's not able to get in touch with us, I have found that creates a bit of panic. I need to know that everybody's good, especially with having older children, that you're okay. And when I, reach out to you, I need you to respond, because if you don't respond, then my mind starts going to the worst place. Do you feel that same anxiety that I'm describing that my husband feels at times?
I would say it's a yes. It's also like I wonder how my parents did it, because we didn't have any of that technology, and so they would say I would be outside. I was always outside, running around and riding my bike and going all over the city. And we grew up in Fort Worth, Texas, and so we were very much in the city, and so we were, going across highways and stuff, not like on bridges, but on underpasses, not the actual highway, but crossing those and going to malls and things like that. It's a different. You don't know exactly where they are, and especially I don't know how my parents did it, but
I don't either.
Must have kept them on edge. I must have, but we did, and now, having a team driving, even though she doesn't have it, it is. You're exactly right, Jen. I love having my phone and her having her phone and being able to just say, where are you? And being able to look it up and see, and knowing what she's up to.
Yeah. And, to Logan's point earlier, we all have our things. You'd be hard pressed to find somebody that says, oh, I have nothing in my family. There's absolutely nothing.
Right.
So I really understand that point. And I think, I'm so glad, Logan, that you shared that, as you were thinking about this and when you came together with Tia, your first thought was, well, this is a condition just like any other condition where, you got to keep after it and make sure you're medicating properly and all of these things. But I do think that no matter how much we look at it as we all have our things and we know how to take care of this, that there is that sense of anxiety, just knowing how dire something can become and how quickly that can happen with a SADS condition. So how do you keep your anxiety at bay with so many children and a wife also dealing with the condition, Logan?
I don't know. There's a few ways I could answer that. I'm probably kind of like you described your husband, pretty easygoing. Don't let a lot of things get to me, and I tend to just take it a day at a time and have faith that everything's going to be okay, and just worry about what I can control. So.
That's a good point. So much for everybody, not just the SADS community, so much is out of our control. And I think when you have a condition, you realize that more and more. There's only so much we can do. And then after you've done that, you have to just live your life. And we don't always have that control. And maybe that's, the biggest lesson in all of this is, as parents, as fathers, you do your best to give them the guidance and set a good example so that they can care for themselves later. And then you have to just let it go and hope that they do what they know is right. Would you agree with that? Is there something you would add to that? Any of you?
Well, I was just going to say I'm a little more proactive. I mean, I can be laid back, but I'm a bit more proactive. And so, you know, Tom's point about technology and when he was a kid is, I think, a really good one. It would never have occurred to me because of how this condition found us 5 years ago, right? But with the phone technology, you know, I do have Find My Phone. The whole family does. So I'm more proactive. I'm looking, you know, what's going on. Where are they? And it happened once. I'm looking for somebody, and why are they at the hospital? Why haven't I gotten a phone call? And then our oldest daughter, who does have the condition, is now a first-year med student. So that whole set of anxieties I can now get rid of that because she's in the hospital on a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
But I've also told them, my wife and my daughter who have the condition, if my phone rings and it's you, I'm going to answer it. I'm going to, you know, people in my company, in my office know that I'm going to interrupt a meeting. I'm going to take a phone call. So if you have something happening, please call me. And if it's less urgent, please send me a text, because I'm going to interrupt my meeting. I'm going to step outside to talk to you. And, you know, I don't want to step outside the meeting. I will, of course, but I'd rather not step outside the meeting to you know, to tell you what kind of pizza I want for dinner or whatever.
Yeah, that's a good point about being proactive. It's kind of goes along the lines of, you know, bring the AED if you're traveling or whatever the case may be, your medication. But I like that you have that family plan of, you know, how to locate everybody and that they're aware that you want to be involved. You know, I think a lot of times kids, the first call is mom. It's mom. But to see how active you all are as dads, and that you are very much a part of the day-to-day, and just as much as a mother or any other kind of caretaker, you want to know that they're okay and where they are, and that they can lean on you no matter what you have going on in your life. They're the number one. And it's just wonderful to be able to hear from you and understand how raising children at all different ages, you know, how you manage that as you go along each of these stages. And each of you have represented that so beautifully today. And I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here with us, and giving us the opportunity to wish all of you a very happy Father's Day. And I hope you continue to feel that love today and throughout every day of the year. And know that SADS is always here for all of you dads that are watching, and all of the families out there. For any questions or concerns, remember, you can always go to sads.org. And I have one special announcement before we go, and that is, you're going to want to know about this, Tom. We are having a webinar on Tuesday at 7:30 Eastern time for CPVT, and we have the very talented, incredibly smart and accomplished Dr. Prince Carroll, who will be with us for that webinar out of Vanderbilt Hospital. So please be sure to tune in for that. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to hear the latest on CPVT research, and also to ask questions to a fantastic expert in the field. Again, happy Father's Day to all of you out there. I know it's a bit belated, but it's never too late to celebrate. And thank you for being with us today for SADS Live. We'll see you next time right here. Have a great weekend.